Okay, so A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Salma Rizvi. I'm the president of the American Muslim Bar Association, and Amba is a conglomerate of Muslim attorneys, law students, aspiring lawyers. We're a safe space for all Muslims, and our leadership is predominantly made up of Muslim minorities, Sufis, Shias. We're value driven, not identity driven. So we try to ensure that each of our events is rooted in one of these values: justice, mercy, compassion, and love. And for today's event, we wanted to try to make this platform about that of seeking justice and doing pro bono work, particularly in the big law setting. So we understand that there's a lot of challenging issues facing Muslims in America today, particularly legal issues, and many of our public interest resources are often exhausted. And so what we've tried to do with AMBA in this past year is to develop a space where we, as Muslim practitioners and attorneys in our free time, can really support impact litigation cases, to direct services in litigation cases, to really ensure that all Muslims in America, particularly our aunties and uncles from the communities, our younger brothers and sisters, whoever needs legal help gets the legal help. So we're constantly receiving asks for support, and we try to respond to those as quickly as we can. But as we are growing, we've realized that there's a need to streamline this. And so to that end, we're excited to launch the Law Firm Network, a network of dozens of Muslim American attorneys seeking to be on standby to help when a need from the community arises. And it's my honor today to introduce the founder and chair of our Law Firm Network, Mohammad Pathan. Mohammad is an associate of Davis Wright Tremaine LLP, where his practice focuses on commercial litigation. In Mohammad's active pro bono practice, he has litigated a number of matters touching upon American civil rights. Most recently, he litigated a lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act on behalf of the Legal Aid Society and Latino Justice, PRLDEF, to obtain documents on the White House's influence on the Department of Housing and Urban Development in promulgating a proposed rule that seeks to tear apart mixed status families in public housing. He has also successfully litigated a Section 1983 lawsuit to settlement against a New Jersey police officer for applying excessive force on a New Jersey resident in the course of an arrest. Mohammad is a graduate from the University of Virginia Law School, 2015 graduate, and he received his bachelor's degree in accounting from Rutgers University, magna cum laude, in 2012. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce and welcome our moderator, Mohammad Pathan.
Salam and hello, everyone. Salma, thank you very much for the very warm and flattering welcome. I must say that I'm truly excited about the launch of the Amba Law Firm Network. It's an honor to moderate this panel, and I'm as anxious as you are to learn from our panelists about succeeding in a law firm and hearing about their successful pro bono cases. However, before we dive into our panel, I wanted to share some background information about AMBA and our law firm network. I became involved in AMBA in September 2020 after being introduced to the organization by my wife, who interestingly enough saw an Instagram post about AMBA and forwarded it to me. I immediately reached out to Selma to see how I could help. We connected, and Selma explained that she had a vision to build a pro bono network to provide support to smaller law firms in cases that touch upon Muslim civil rights. In tandem, Selma wanted to build a network of mentors to support our brothers and sisters who want to advance their careers in the field of law. I was immediately on board. From my perspective, I envisioned AMBA to be the purveyor of justice for American Muslims and an organization that gives voice to the marginalized. I also love the idea of building a mentorship network. As someone who has had the great benefit of having mentors throughout my career, the value of a good mentor cannot be overstated. And so I began the process of identifying Muslims in big law. Through that process, we have grown our network to 25 attorneys representing 17 of the largest law firms in America. These attorneys have agreed to assist AMBA by taking on pro bono cases, mentoring younger attorneys or students, or even speaking at AMBA events. So with that background, I'd like to turn to our panel. Our objective with our time today is to gain valuable insight from our esteemed panelists on succeeding in a law firm, especially as a diverse person, and also about learning about the powerful impact of pro bono. Let me introduce our panelists. First, Hussein Akhavanik is a partner at Baker Hostetler in Washington, D.C., and is the co-leader of Baker's life sciences team. Hussein's intellectual property practice consists of assisting companies with preparing and filing patent applications, developing IP protection strategies, and working with in-house counsel to manage the prosecution of those patents worldwide. Hussein has been recognized by IAM Patent 1000 as one of the world's leading patent practitioners. Next up, we have Arif, who has been momentarily disconnected, and oh, here he is. Arif Ali is a partner at Deckard LLP in both the Washington, D.C. and London offices. He's the co-chair of Deckard's international arbitration practice and has served as lead counsel in a number of complex arbitrations in several industries, including construction, thermal, nuclear, and hydropower, along with the oil and gas industry. Arif has been consistently rated as one of the world's leading international arbitration specialists by Chambers and Partners, Legal 500, among others. Moving down the line, Farhad Chaudhry is a partner at Shepard Mullen in Palo Alto, California. Farhad's corporate practice focuses on assisting emerging companies through all stages of their life cycle and also assisting venture capital funds in structuring and maintaining their portfolio company investments. Farhad has represented a whole host of clients in complex M&A transactions. Next up, Fatima Merchant is a partner at Shepard Mullen in Washington, D.C. Fatima focuses her practice on international regulatory investigations, compliance, and white-collar defense. Fatima is the chair of Shepard Mullen's Diversity Working Group in her office and is also the co-leader of the firm-wide Attorneys of Color Group. Fatima serves on the firm's pro bono committee and has been recognized as a rising star by super lawyers. She was also featured by Washington lawyers for being the first hijab-wearing partner at an AmLaw 100 firm in DC. Last, but certainly not least, Yusuf Sakir. Yusuf is the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Davis Wright Tremaine LLP and leads the firm's efforts to building a culture where all attorneys and staff, including those traditionally underrepresented in the legal profession, have a path to long-term success. Outside of his work at Davis Wright Tremaine, Yusuf is a leader in diversity and inclusion and is frequently called upon by law firms and corporations to address pressing issues on D&I. Prior to entering the world of D&I, Yusuf was a litigation attorney at Latham & Watkins in California. As a note, and as Salma mentioned, if you have questions during the panel, please send them to us in the Q&A box. You'll see it down at the bottom of the screen, and we will try to answer your questions at the end of the panel. So to begin, can each of the panelists please provide a brief description of your personal path at your respective law firms and a more deeper dive into your practice area? Was becoming a partner always the end goal? Fatima, could you please kick it off?
Sure, and I won't spend a lot of time on my practice area, but I will say something that a lot of you might be thinking, like, do I want to sit a firm? Why am I at a firm? How long should I be at this firm? And I will say, I never thought that I was going to make partner at a big law firm. That wasn't my goal in law school. That's not what I thought for myself, this many years out of law school. But I encourage you to keep your mind open. As I started at my firm, I lateraled to Shepard Mullen as a mid-level associate. I enjoyed my practice. I do interesting work for interesting clients, work with great people, but I also realized I was able to balance some of the things I cared about while maintaining my private practice, and things like D&I, things like pro bono, and that actually helped me to become a leader in the firm and in the community. So, I realized that I think I can make more of an impact within private practice, as a partner in a big law firm. So once you're in there, I encourage all of you to really keep an open mind. And someone once told me, like, act like you want to make partner. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Just do the things you need to do to make partner, because that will help you build a successful career, whether you stay at the firm or go elsewhere.
Thank you, Fatima. That's so true. I mean, been told that by many attorneys in my firm, that, like, be what you want to be. Don't act like an associate. If you want to be a partner one day, take ownership and really take command of your career. Hussein, could you go next?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So my story is very similar to Fatima. came to a law firm so that I could get trained and hopefully go in-house one day as corporate counsel somewhere. But coming to Baker, I lateraled to Baker when I was a fourth-year associate, and I was given the opportunity to do a lot of varied work. Obviously, with my technology background, I focused on patents, but also having the opportunity to do corporate work, M&A work, and then as a senior associate being exposed to the business development aspect, you know, trying to get clients and service them in sort of a more high-level approach to client management is something that I really enjoyed. And again, to Fatima's point, I felt like I could make an impact both internally, because we don't have enough Muslim or colored attorneys at our firm. And I know that we're addressing that seriously, but also in the mentorship aspect, right? I think everyone needs someone to look up to. And as I look up to this panel here, and you know, hopefully everyone on the call is as well, it's really inspiring. And I think that we need people to be in those positions to, you know, to inspire. And so given the opportunity to mentor and advise folks is something, quite frankly, that I enjoy more than anything else I do every day.
Thank you, Hussein. Honestly, it's a great pleasure to have you in this panel. So I appreciate your enthusiasm. Farha?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I echo what Fatima and Hussein said. Keep your options open. I never even thought that I didn't go to law school thinking that I was going to be a corporate attorney. I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. And right out of law school, I moved to the Bay Area, and my father-in-law was starting a small angel fund. I knew nothing about corporate law. I just didn't have a business background at all. And I just was interested, you know, being in Silicon Valley, and I would just ask him questions about venture and, you know, corporate law in general. And he introduced me to, you know, two partners at a corporate boutique firm who left Cooley. And I just went in to talk to them about what they did, and really got interested, and they hired me. And, you know, I worked for the same partner for 14 years. So I never thought that I would end up in big law, but you know, I ended up coming here, and you know, looking back, like I can't imagine being anything but a corporate lawyer. So just keep your options open, and you know, you don't know where life is going to take you, what opportunities are going to open and be ahead of you. So just work hard and keep your options open.
Thank you, Farha. That's so true. I mean, there's not one path for everyone. There's so many different ways to getting to a law firm, or to even just having a very successful, thriving legal career. Arif?
Well, I'm probably the person who's been practicing the longest on the panel, over 30 years. And you know, when I think back, what I can say is that after my first summer, I had absolutely no desire to be a partner in a big law firm. I thought it was probably the most boring thing that anybody could do. I saw people who were largely stressed out, people who were, I think, in some respects bitter. There were others who were, I think, very happy because they were motivated by, I think, the financial successes that come with being a partner in a big firm. So, you know, I think that how I've ended up as a partner, and I think probably, you know, reasonably successful at what I do is because I enjoy what I do. I've never thought about the concept of partnership, and I think that if you make that the be-all and end-all of why you're in a law firm or in private law practice, you're going to be very unhappy. I think that the people who pursue money for the sake of money, those people will always be very unhappy. I mean, whether one looks at that as part of our faith tradition, or whether one looks at that as part of a general set of morals and values, or even professional significance in what you're doing, if you're doing it just for the money, then get out of the law, because the law is not the place where you're going to make money that's meaningful. You practice as a lawyer, and you are in the law because you want to do something meaningful. And I think that ultimately, you know, the type of practice I have, which is a cross-border international disputes practice, which has allowed me to appear before the International Court of Justice, before international tribunals, advise governments and C-suites. I mean, it's interesting stuff that I do because I find it intellectually challenging, and that allows me to contribute to betterment. At some point along the way, you will become a partner if that's what you want to be. And whether it's at the firm that you're at right now or it's another firm, if you work hard and you're good enough, you will become a partner. And once you have that P after your name, you'll wonder, well, what's the big deal? It really wasn't that big a deal. I'm now a partner. I have additional responsibilities, but with that come additional responsibilities, not only to your partners, most importantly financially, but I think that for those of us in this community, we need to look beyond that and consider the responsibility that we have to our broader community as ambassadors for our community within the legal profession, and to other aspiring lawyers to give them the guidance that they need to understand how to put it all in perspective. I mean, I'm nearing the end of my career. And again, I cannot tell you, emphasize as much as I possibly can, do what you do because you want to do it, not because you want to become a partner in a law firm, because there are many other ways that you can be successful in the law other than being part of a partnership.
Wow, Arif, that was such deep, powerful, insightful advice. Thank you so much. Moving on to Yusuf, you began your career as a litigation attorney, and then you transferred to a role in diversity and inclusion. Could you give us a little bit more background about why you decided to switch tracks?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. First of all, it's not fair that I got to follow Arif. That's just not nice. Beyond that, so I think I'm the only former lawyer right on this panel. I really liked litigation, right? I had the chance to do interesting work at a good law firm. I clerked in the Central District of California and was on a good trajectory. But as I was practicing, I began to experience, I began to see in the profession the inequities that hinder the ability of folks who are from underrepresented populations from making it. And as an associate, I began to devote a substantial amount of time to that effort. When I know a lot of associates and partners and other folks at firms end up doing that, where they're spending, sometimes hundreds of hours, right, on this effort. And ultimately, I realized I wanted to devote my full-time energy to this. And I was fortunate to be at a firm where I was at Latham & Watkins, where I started, that created space for me to do that, where I was able to transition from practice into a full-time D&I role. And it's helpful to be able to do that, obviously, right? Because you can understand the experiences of folks who practice, you can understand the challenges that come with it, the obligations, things that Arif was also talking about, and the rest of the panelists, the pressures that come with it. But I feel fortunate to be able to truly align sort of something that I'm very passionate about with the work that I do. And as you can imagine, it's a space that has grown substantially over the last decade, 5 years, and the last year, right? I think we've seen this space just continue to grow. And so I'm happy to talk about any of that and happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. And for everyone who doesn't know, Yusuf and I are actually at the same firm, Davis Wright Tremaine. I think we joined around the same time, and I like to think of it as a grace from God, but honestly, his presence at DWT is amazing. I'm so happy that we have Yusuf at our firm, and he's someone I can reach out to for any issues that I may have in my career and any advice I may need. So thank you, Yusuf. So let's switch gears now to talk about legal practice a bit. So Farha, Arif, and Hussein, I know we touched on this slightly but I want to kind of pivot this question in a different direction. To what specific things would you attribute your continuing success at your law firms? Farha, you want to go first?
Sure. So I think, I mentioned that, I didn't know anything about corporate law. So in the beginning, I just wanted to learn. I wanted to learn everything there was. I wanted to talk to anyone who could teach me anything about venture, corporate law. And I really enjoyed that. And the learning curve was so high. And I loved connecting with clients. I loved providing high quality work for them. And I really fell in love with working with my team. I mean, we work so closely together. We work such long hours. So I wasn't really strategic about wanting to come to a big law firm, and never really thought about it, to be honest. And, when my team, I came over to Shepherd Mullen with a team of 6 people, and I would have gone anywhere with them because they're one of the big reasons why I enjoyed my job so much. And when I got to the big law firm, I instantly fell in love because it allowed me to continue to learn, and it gave me the platform to specialize even deeper in my areas of interest. And, it just opened doors for you because there's always an event, there's always a networking opportunity, there's always an opportunity to learn. And so I think, to answer your question about attributing success, I think it's just having an open mind and wanting to learn and wanting to really care about doing a good job.
Thank you, Farah. Now it sounds like you took a deep intellectual interest in actually learning about the substance of the law, just learning more about the practice area. Hussein?
Sure. I'm going to echo everything Farah said. That's absolutely true. Becoming an expert in what you do is very important as you're counseling, your sophisticated clients there. But for me, the long-term success was actually because of an organization just like this. And that's why, these organizations are so important to me, partly beyond all the other things that we've talked about. But I was very active in the Muslim Students Law Association at George Washington. And we had a great group of folks. We helped plan a lot of events, still have a lot of long-term relationships with folks that were part of that organization with me. And as I was transitioning from a mid-level associate to a senior associate, like I said, I joined as a fourth year. Probably about my 6th or 7th year, some of the folks in Malsa with me at GW had gone in-house and had sort of decision-making authority on where to send work. And we're not talking millions and millions of dollars, but hundreds of thousands of dollars started to be sent to me as my friends taking care of me. And as for everyone on the phone knows how hard business development is. And having a network like that to support you, because A, they trust you because you know the law, you know the work, and they know you're going to stand by it, but also for that personal relationship. That's what really propelled me to then, the P word, as Arif said, because the firm said, well, if clients are trusting you and you're already bringing in some work, we could trust you with other larger clients, obviously. Now, had that not happened, I don't know if the firm would have trusted me with bigger clients to manage, if I hadn't had those opportunities. But those opportunities were a direct result of the friendships that I made in Malsa. And, honestly, I don't think I would be a partner without them, to be very frank.
Thanks, Hussein. I think that's a really valuable reminder to all of us to take an effort to stay in touch with the folks that you genuinely want to stay connected to, because you never know where people will go in their careers.
Yeah, and I could just touch on that. I don't want to take up any of Fatima's time, but Arif's time, but this does touch on Arif. You do what you want to do to get successful, but also when you're maintaining relationships, it's so much easier to maintain a relationship with someone you want to maintain a relationship with, as opposed to an artificial one. And it's fun, right? You get to talk to your friends, and then if you get to work together too, it's twice as fun. So I'm gonna stop talking there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Arif?
Okay, so don't forget the following. Law and big law is a business. We can have all the happy talk that we want about everything, but at its core, it is a business. And why have I been successful? Because I bring in a crap load of money for the firm, pure and simple. Sorry to be crass about it, but that's what gives you leverage, it gives you power, it gives you influence. And at the end of the day, as a diverse attorney, as a Muslim attorney, the best ambassadorship for who we are and what we do and what our community means is being successful in the firm. And so do not use your faith, your skin color, your identity, your gender as a crutch, period. You have to be better than everybody else. You have to work harder than everybody else, and you need to do that on the basis of building resilient relationships, having the technical expertise, but understanding that you need to bring in the money. Because at the end of the day, you could be a really damn good lawyer, but that's only going to get you so far. You'll end up being a service partner. There's nothing wrong with that. The rates that we charge in big law are so high that you need to be an expert. That's a given. But you need to go far beyond that in terms of building the relationships, not just within our community, but outside of the community. And unfortunately, within our community, we don't do enough. We are the best talkers about how we support each other and how we need to do things for each other. Now, we're a young community. We're still building as a community. When I was in law school, there wasn't a single Muslim at NYU. in my generation, people didn't really go to law school. And I'm very gratified to see how the ranks of law schools and law firm partners have grown incredibly. And so we have a long way to go in terms of the same type of networking. But if we are to do what we need to do to be really successful, then, look to your left, look to your right, see who it is that's there, and say, I am going to do something to help you. I am going to do something to make your practice bigger. I don't care whether you're in my firm or not, because I know that the more successful that you become, the more successful I will become. So do it out of personal interest, do it out of belief in the community, but understanding that if we don't help ourselves, no one else is going to help us. And with that help, we then end up being more successful in the economic evaluation that takes place within every AmLaw 100 firm. And in varying degrees from top to bottom, the softer issues begin, may be more meaningful at a firm that's number 100 in the AmLaw 100, but a firm that's at the top of the AmLaw 100, make no bones about it. It's about economic success.
Thank you, RF. That's a very good reminder at the end of the day. We are in a profit-making business. It's not a not-for-profit. That at the end of the day, the bottom line does matter. So I appreciate that.
Well, Mohammad, then I want to make the point here that, because of our diversity and this is something that Yusuf can speak to perhaps more so, and Fatima, that because of our diversity, we end up getting put into particular roles or their particular sets of expectations. And those, I think, are good expectations, but they shouldn't become crutches for us to feel that we can somehow coast by. We do not have that luxury. We really don't. And I've seen it time and time and time again. So, I think it's great to have these sort of fora. And I think these fora will have their value not only in the fact that the forum exists, but also in the fact that we can be very real and raw in terms of what we say to our mentees and to our colleagues as part of our, the advice and mentorship that we give.
Mohammad, is it okay if I ask a follow-up? I agree with you completely, because I definitely think it cannot substitute the economics, right? If your economics are super powerful and you have this other stuff, it's like icing on the cake, but it will never substitute the economics. But what do you think about this community, your work, building the relationships you need to bring in that business, to Hussein's point?
It requires a lot of hard work, right? It requires a huge amount of work. And what Hussein focused on was a very important word, trust, right? Just because we're Muslims, just because we may have common heritage, doesn't mean that there is an automatic level of trust, right? I mean, there is, we are required by our faith to trust each other, but the reality of human psyche, and being the skeptical lawyers that we are, who have been diluted, let's say, in the way in which we think about things by virtue of the fact that we are living and working in a society in which trust is something that doesn't, that's very hard to come by. We have to find ways to allow people to interact, to be able to identify their skill sets, and take that leap of faith. Right? I mean, I only know some of you by name or reputation, or because, other friends have asked me, so, well, do you know so-and-so? Right? But I've not met you. I don't know about your practices. I don't know what you're doing. And so, in terms of referral work, the first place I would want to look is someplace that doesn't exist. Right? So I think that there's a huge amount of work that has to go into this. Those who are on this call, both as on the panel and those in the audience, so to speak, the virtual audience, should be raising their hands and saying, okay, I'm going to put in the time, just as I would at my firm. I'm going to put the time in to help create the website, to help create the expertise list, to help create the ways in which people can connect, to create, to create a forum in which I'm going to figure out how best I can promote another Muslim lawyer for greater limelight, right? We do that within our respective firms to try and highlight ourselves and to try and, you know, highlight other colleagues to get chambers rankings and to get to publish books and to, you know, do whatever else. Well, take that a step further and think about the firm community that we have here. But it, you know, that's a very nice thing for me to say, but it's a lot of work for Mohammad to have to do.
And if I could just add one quick interesting anecdote on that, RF, I did a pitch a few years ago for one of my friends, you know, invited me to the RFP, and I went into the room and his general counsel was there and said, "Oh, Hussein, you're one of Umar's friends, huh?" And it was sort of like, the only reason you're here is because you knew him from before. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you're a relatively young guy. I don't know if you're going to do me. And to your point of trust, I've gotten into that encounter a few times. And I said, look, the opportunity arose because I know Umar, but I believe I can do the good job for you. And here's why. And sort of transition that right into then, you know, why she would want to work with us, and what, you know, then the expertise and the hard work and everything else that you, Farah, and the rest of the panel have said comes in. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. It's sort of like you can use those connections to get your foot in the door, and sometimes they can be used against you because you're like the other minority that's kind of being dragged along. And to have that, to really become an expert in your craft, to disprove that bias, I think is very important.
Thank you, Hussein. That's such a good insight. So kind of switching gears, I'm going to address this question to Fatima and Farha. One of the most common questions we hear is for law students or laterals who either do not have the best grades, or they went to law schools that did not have a pretty robust or expansive on-campus interview program. How can they best position themselves to get a job in big law? Fatima?
So kind of to I's point, right? Like law firms, I don't know how many students, there might not be so many students in the audience. So I won't spend a ton of time on this. But and when you're in the lateral market, grades are less important. But oftentimes, you know, I'll get this question about like, oh, but I didn't have the best grades, but I'm diverse, I have this, whatever work experience. And I'll just be very blunt. Like law firms are very kind of stringent. We have structures. And if you don't make the grade cutoff, then typically we don't interview you. So if you want any type of opportunity, it will mean a mix of timing and luck and relationships. And so I would say you have to pound the pavement and reach out to every person you know, develop those relationships. And thankfully, there are a lot of people in the community that are now in positions of power that might be able to get you that first interview. But frankly, to Arif's point, we can't take a chance on you unless you've demonstrated that you're going to actually be good, because otherwise we are taking a risk with our own careers. And so I will back to, you know, Arif is preaching the gospel here. Like the idea that what he's saying is that we do have to be better if we want to be leaders and actually have the power and the seat at the table. So all of us are in this together. So you cannot screw up, because that will mean that we will, and then that will hurt your chances and your career going forward as well. So I would say demonstrate your work ethic, your excellence, your intelligence in other ways, any way that you can. Don't assume that people will give you a chance just because of the affinity. You're going to have to demonstrate that you're actually going to be very, very good and that you're worth taking a chance on.
Absolutely. Farha?
Yeah, and that goes both ways, right? I mean, the opportunity that Hussein was mentioning when, you know, he walked into the room. I mean, when you are given those opportunities, the pressure's on us too to follow through and to make sure that the trust that's been you know, given to us, that we work that much harder and you know, because that person's reputation. So it works both ways. We feel it too. And, you know, there's a variety of reasons why people don't start out at the big law. They may not want to at first. They may not have the grades. They may not have been given the opportunity, but there's a lot of paths to get here. And, you know, I think that like Fatima already alluded to, you know, starting out at a smaller firm where, you know, the barrier to entry is a little bit lower because there's less applicants, and just kind of learning and then pounding the pavement and networking, and just waiting for the opportunity, you know, with a little luck to be able to lateral in somewhere. There's different ways to get here. You don't have to start here. And in fact, some of the best attorneys I know didn't start at Big Law.
Absolutely. Thank you, Borja. Let's turn to a diversity now. So Yusuf and Fatima, you know, a lot of us are trying to build our relationships and reputations at our respective law firms, while we're still trying to represent and preserve our Muslim identities. You know, to put it bluntly, how Muslim can we actually be? You know, as an example, how do we manage partner and senior associate expectations in Ramadan, particularly when we want to spend the evening iftar hours with our family and friends, or attending the mosque, you know, in pre-COVID times? Yusuf?
Thanks, Mohammad. So a bunch of things on this, right? So first I wanted to respond to Arif because I think he made a good point. I think there's validity to his statement about economics being important. I think at the same time, I think we have to be very aware of the barriers that exist, right? Which is also what he's saying. I think there are real inequities that exist, right? We see that in the fact that the vast majority of the partnership in the AmLaw 100 is white, right? So to his point, I think the key to success in this, and the success in diversity, really is the idea of, you know, representation begets representation, right? And so to Fatima's point, we're still at a point where a single Muslim's performance is reflective of the ummah, right? Like that, and that happens to not only us, it happens to people of color, right? Who are written off more quickly. It happens to other folks who are in underrepresented populations. And this will happen less once we are at the point where we have more representation, because it will then become, you know, we'll reach that tipping point and it'll become cyclical and support itself, but we're not there yet. We're far from being there, quite candidly. So to answer your question, when I began in the profession, you know, diversity probably was less important. It definitely was less important now than it is now. And folks were compelled to want to fit in. And I did cover, right? That's when you tone down a part of your identity to fit into the mainstream. And for me, that did include trying to cover parts of my identity, including my religious identity, to the extent that I could. So for example,
were you wearing your topi?
No. And even this, I don't wear full time. I wear when I feel comfortable wearing it. It's a good point. And when example, I never really asked for time off for Ramadan or for special occasions. I did what I needed to do, but I never made a big deal about it. When I prayed at work, I did in my office. I did wudu in a bottle, like with a bottle of water over the garbage can, right? And you know, that's the way that I would manage that. And I partly covered because that part of my identity was being spotlighted on. And we still have to deal with, they still occur. And you could argue that, like in every individual instance, that microaggression is benign, right? But it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? And that's what makes it so insidious, I think. I'll give you one like silly example that will make you laugh, but it demonstrates the point. Like I remember being a summer associate at a law firm, and all the summer associates were sitting together at a table with a number of like very senior partners, and the firm had just opened an office in Dubai. And so the conversation turned to that topic. And a question came up about the Middle East. And literally, like it was like a sitcom, like all the heads turned toward me. And notwithstanding the fact that I'm not from the Middle East, like my parents from East Africa, I'm South Asian. Like the only time I've been to Dubai was like a stopover where I ate the Shake Shack because everything's halal, it's amazing. But like it's those little kind of indignities, right? In some ways, right? That build up over time. I think it's also important to remember though, that things have gotten a lot better, right? From times like that, I think folks are a lot more knowledgeable. Diversity is far more valued. There's more space for it. And I would say when you're first starting out, like you do have to ease into it, right? At the end of the day, you know, regardless of cultural, religious, or ethnic background, we are working in a demanding professional services client-driven industry, right? And so we have to balance that against all the facets of our personal identity. And I don't think it's ever going to perfectly align, right? But the goal is to get it to align as close as we can over time. And to that end, the one thing that I found to be helpful is to build a community to support you, right? So when it comes to big law, there are not many Muslims in general. Every firm that I've been at least, that I've been at 3 large firms, there are no more than 10 Muslims. and we'll talk, I think we'll talk about this topic next, but religious groups are not something that fits squarely within the D&I umbrella, right? So you're not going to necessarily see a formal religious affinity group, a formal Muslims group. There'll be what they consider cultural celebrations, right? So Ramadan and Eid, but D&I law firms doesn't really intersect with religion. And so you have to make your own community, right? And so every firm that I've been at, I've intentionally tried to build that community of other Muslims. If nothing else, just an email chain for folks to get to know one another. And Mohammed knows we started this at Davis Wright. But it's to give folks an opportunity to build that community so you can get that level of support. And again, hopefully with the intention of growing that community, right? But that to me has always been sort of a saving grace.
Thank you, Yusuf. Fatima?
Yusuf, you said so many great things there. So I don't have a ton to add, but I'll just, from the perspective of a woman, and, I wear rida, which is a Dawdi Bora hijab. And so I don't know if you know any Dawdi Boras, but like the ones that women wear in masjid are like bright orange or really super bright colors. And when I started law school and in my career, I had made this conscious, no, I must have ones that look like suit. And my husband would be like, honey, it's never going to look like a suit. I don't know why you're trying to make a pinstripe hijab because no one thinks you are wearing a suit right now, right? But in my mind, it was for me to have the confidence and the ability to, it was just totally psychological. I feel more comfortable, to Yusuf's point, and I am more open to building relationships because I feel more comfortable. And now I can wear bright pinks to work and no one cares, right? Because I don't care. But a lot of the things that I thought about as a Muslim woman is, okay, I wear hijab, but I'm also going to wear makeup. I'm also going to wear high heels. And these are parts of covering, right? Because what are the things that I can do to make you think I am just like you? I'm as American as all of you, right? And so that informs a lot of my choices, whether or not you have to do what you're comfortable with. But I interact with men regularly. I hug my coworkers. I do a lot of the personal interactions that make other people feel comfortable. And even though it should not be our burden to make other people feel comfortable, I have chosen that as a way to build relationships because the more open I am, the more comfortable people feel around me and the more authentic those relationships are. So I go out of my way to build those friendships with the conservative white male partners at my firm, and chat about whatever they want to chat about, right? Talk about whatever they want to talk about. And then at the same time, as soon as they're comfortable, they'll be like, can I ask you a question? And they'll ask me something about our faith, or about Ramadan or about something. And I'll be very open in explaining it to them because at the end of the day, people want to know and they want to learn and they're curious. They feel they can't ask the question unless they feel a comfort level with you. And there was a question in the chat about how do you navigate the drinking, work, play hard culture of the firm. And I'll be honest, at my practice group retreats, I am out there at 2 a.m., the only sober person. It is brutal, okay? It's painful. There's a point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore because everyone else is drunk and I'm gonna remember everything that everybody says. But I'll be out there and I'll hang out and do breakfast and lunches, do what you're comfortable with, but find ways to socialize that make you comfortable.
Mohammed, if I may add a couple of points there.
Please.
I think on the drinking thing, one of the, not only is there a global temperance movement that is not in any way religiously driven, but I think that especially in the US, it's become more and more accepted that people don't drink, and whether it's because you're Muslim or because you're Mormon, or for whatever other reason. So I wouldn't be so worried about, the fact that you don't drink. I mean, if you were, white male and from Utah or white female from Utah and you say you didn't drink, nobody would think twice about it. But because you wear hijab, or have a hipster beard, well, look, here's the point. If Yusuf wasn't wearing a hat and he has, if he was white and he was walking around with, short trousers, people would say hipster. He goes around with a beard, he's brown, and he has short trousers, and they think he's Taliban. So so my point is that at different points in your career, you are going to have to modulate the degree to which you are going to reaffirm your identity, right? And so on the drinking thing, I think you can, as Fatima was saying, in whatever, if you're comfortable being around people who are drinking, fine, don't drink. And if you're uncomfortable, then, be true to your faith and worry about what it is that other people are going to think. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to remember the fact that you left early, right? On the issue of Ramadan, again, I think you're living in an environment today, you're practicing an environment today where there is a general recognition of what Ramadan is across all firms and all parts of society. I mean, irrespective of the last 4 years, we have White House Ramadans, we have Ramadans, interfaith Ramadans across the country. And I think that people are very familiar with what the concept is and what it means. And I would even suggest that you speak to people within your organizations and have them fast for a day, right? Have them join in, have them participate. Often I'll, during Ramadan, I'll order in food from different restaurants and have people come by just to eat for iftar, even if they haven't been fasting. It's because it's something that we're doing to celebrate our own faith. And on the issue of diversity, I think I've probably come to care about it less and less. People keep talking about, break down the barriers. Well, I didn't create the barrier. I'm not the barrier. If you've got the barrier, I'm going to break it down by just bulldozing right through it. I'm not going to worry about all of this, I'm Muslim, I'm not Muslim, I'm white, I'm not white, I'm black, I'm not black, whatever else. I'm just going to drive right through it and, baby, hold on. Because, otherwise, no one's going to let you sit at the table. They're going to keep pushing back. I think you have to figure out the strategies with the help of, guidance and advice and the insight that individuals like Yusuf and Fatima have to know how to be forceful, but without being obnoxious, right? And the older you get, and inshallah, the more successful you get, frankly, the more obnoxious you can be about living your own identity and having people, not see you as the Muslim lawyer. Your lawyer happens to be Muslim, right? Does anybody see Weil Gotshal, my former law firm where I was a partner, the first equity Muslim partner that Weil Gotshal ever had, right? I mean, does anybody ever think about Weil Gotshal as the Jewish law firm? But they are unabashedly Jewish, right? Unabashedly and proud of it. So, my point is that you can, if the more pride you take in who you are, the more people are going to absorb that because you are excellent as human beings and excellent in what you do. And because of the excellence of who you are as human beings, they'll stop thinking that, well, you're Muslim, right? They just think this is a great person who happens to be Muslim.
Very good point, Arif. If I may, I have a personal anecdote that I always, kind of look to is I'm unapologetically Muslim, but I'm also cognizant that I'm in a law firm where I've been hired to do a specific job. So I have conversations with the partners or whoever I'm working with to let them know, hey, this is Ramadan. Between the hours of 6 to 9, or 6 to 10, or whatever it is, I may not be accessible. Keeping in the back of my mind that if there's a filing due or if there's some type of a deadline, you have to balance your religious, obligations with your work obligations. At the end of the day, the work obligation is keeping the roof over your head, but there's a way to find a balance to do so. So if I say I can't work after 6 because I'm just my blood sugar is dropped and I can't focus, then I pick it back up at 10:30 at night. And with COVID nowadays, people are working at all different kinds of schedules. So just something to keep in mind, a little personal anecdote on that piece.
And I'll add to that as well. When I was a summer associate, and it happened to fall that summer during the month of Ramadan, and I did all my summer associate lunches as dinners. And the associates and the partners loved that. They were happy to do so. And also at my law firm office, all of our doors and walls are glass, and women who are breastfeeding can ask for blinds so that they can pump inside of the office. And they put permanent blinds in my office so that I could pray during the day and if I was staying late. And so other small tips how to kind of turn your faith into an opportunity to make the work around you, inshallah.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Salma. So we've kind of touched on this a bit about not using your faith as a crutch, but I wanted to kind of pivot that question in a different direction, you know? So obviously the last several years, it has been a recent shift in attention to diversity. And so how can diverse individuals leverage, you know, their strengths and differences? Obviously we are different and their firms are looking to folks who are diverse nowadays. I mean, whether that be in the context of law firm recruiting, associate advancement, or building relationships with clients. I'll direct this question to Yusuf and Hussein.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And before I want to very respectfully push back against Arif on the point about diversity doesn't matter. And to be clear about that, that's obviously because that's my job, first of all. So I'd like to continue to have a job. But two, there are, studies, like this has been studied and researched of the inequities that people face, right? Like I'll give you one, you've all seen this, I'm sure, but it's a really good and easy example, right? So there was a study done by this company called Nextions. It's called Written in Black and White. It was done about 4 years ago. There was an identical memo written by a hypothetical third-year associate from NYU Law named Thomas Meyer, right? It was sent to 60 law firm partners. That partnership itself was diverse, all right? Everything was exactly the same, but 30 partners were told that Thomas was Black and 30 partners were told that Thomas was white, right? When they thought Thomas was white, the memo got a 4 out of 5. Lots of potential, partnership material can succeed. Thomas was Black, get a 5. Can't believe he went to NYU, which is where you went, Arif. Lacks potential, doesn't know how to write, right? Those things do matter, right? And if we can ignore them individually, right? But then we ignore the system, I think. And it's not all your jobs to figure that out. That's sort of my job to figure that out. But at the same time, it is a collective responsibility, right? To acknowledge those things that happen, right? To make sure that we're not ignoring them, because to the extent that we ignore them, then we don't acknowledge there's a problem and it's never going to be solved, right? It's just going to continue to persist. But 3 things I want to talk about when it comes to law firm D&I efforts. First, I think it's important to understand demographics. And I talked a little bit about this, but so law firm diversity is primarily based on traditional identity markers. I talked about this: race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability status. Many law firms are expanding to include things like first-generation professional. We're doing that at Davis Wright, as well as veterans, and also race, ethnic categories that are not covered by the EEO definitions, right? But the point that I want to talk about earlier is that religion is not a data point that's collected, and for good reason, I think. But this leads to a sub-point, right? That Muslims are not a monolith, right? We're not all the same, right? And we know that, but most people don't know that, right? They don't realize that Muslims come from every part of the world, right? And as a Muslim community, I think we too have to remind ourselves of that. I think a lot of our communities tend to be insular, and we need to try to kind of recognize that exists and try to fight back against it when we can. The second thing is that it's important to understand how D&I efforts have evolved. So most law firms began by talking about diversity, like that was the place that they started, right? But they came to realize that that's sort of a backwards way to start, right? Diversity is an outcome you want to achieve, right? What I was talking about at the start of this is really equity is what you want to focus on, right? Equity is the path to diversity, with inclusion being the guardrails on that path, right? And most law firms have had it completely backwards this kind of whole time. But they're coming around on that. Which is a good thing. The third is I do really believe that it's more of a strength now than it ever was before, right? So, before, like I was talking about with the example that I gave about myself, and Fatima was talking about the same thing too, downplaying the things that make us different, right? Try to fit in as much as possible. but things are different now. They're changing. And this is something that law firms are inherently obviously trying to get better at. But there's also a tremendous amount of external pressure now too, which I think you have to recognize. And it's pressure by a lot of our clients. So I'll give you one quick data point that demonstrates a story. So we receive surveys from our clients requesting demographic information either about the firm or the subset of folks working on matters, et cetera. And we have to respond to those surveys. At Davis Wright, in 2018, we got 30 of those surveys. In 2019, we got 70 of them. Last year, we got 130 of them. And this year, end of January, we've already hit 40. And if that trajectory continues, we'll far outpass what we had last year. Mm-hmm. And I'm not suggesting that the surveys it's independently important, but they're an indicator of something, right? They're an indicator of an increasing amount of interest. We're seeing lots of clients in the press talk about this too. Coke recently announced something on this. Amazon has, other clients are demanding this with consequences, right? They're demanding it with financial consequences. And oftentimes that is really the way to get law firms to do anything, right? Is those consequences actually exist. And I think that ultimately is a good thing, right? It's a good thing because it means that our differences are valued in an entirely new way, right? In a way they should have been valued before, but they weren't, but now they are, and that's okay. And that's a superpower that we can use, I think, as we progress and succeed in these organizations.
Thank you, Yusuf. That was a lot, but I really appreciate it, honestly. Hussein?
Yeah, I mean, Yusuf touched on exactly what I was going to mention. And I think before, sometimes when the diversity, I think, hindered some of the relationship building for some of the same reasons that Fatima mentioned. And that's why, for me, as much as, I've never felt any sort of outward discrimination here at this firm or my prior firm, quite frankly, there is the lack of opportunity to make those more meaningful connections with people, both on sorry, my light turned off, both internally and externally in the firm. And so to exactly piggyback on Yusuf's point, with the movement towards diversity happening and a lot of it being client driven with monetary repercussions, which makes folks react right within a profit driven business, opportunities for client development, opportunities for client management, because when they are responding to those surveys, if you don't have enough minority people even managing, I know some of those surveys are not how many hours were billed to our matters, but also from a manager perspective, from a sort of relationship partner perspective, it's opening doors. And to use those doors, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I actually know some folks will say well, I'm not trying to say you're a bad lawyer, but if you can do this, and because your name is Hussein, you might have an opportunity. And I'm like, look, this is an opportunity, and to Arif's point, you have to be good and you have to be hardworking in order to make that work long term, right? That the opportunity to suck within a month, you'll be gone. But if you have that to have that door open for you is a wonderful thing. And I think for the law firm associates that are on the phone, it doesn't mean just bringing in new business. It means doing things internally, right? Whether it's D&I efforts, whether it's pro bono efforts, whether it's something that's close to your heart that you wanted to, like the asylum cases, for example, I know from certain countries or some of the Muslim ban things that I know, I had friends that were a little bit scared of talking about within their firm, right? Saying, oh, you're just trying to take care of your community and try to use our pro bono hours for that. I think those doors are now open for us to approach them and do what's meaningful for you internally and externally.
And that provides the perfect segue to our next topic, which is pro bono. So pro bono is obviously a very important part of being an attorney in private practice. For me, especially allows me to pay it forward to those who are unable to afford the high costs of legal representation, and it gives us an opportunity to litigate matters that we ordinarily wouldn't in our private practice. So Fatima, Yusuf, and Arif, do you have any memorable pro bono cases to share with our audience? Arif?
Gosh, so many. I think that some of the most diverse, interesting, and fulfilling parts of anybody's practice is when you've engaged, when one engages in pro bono work. I mean, things that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do because they aren't profit making for the firm, but ultimately, I think are fill our souls and I think make everybody in the firm feel good about what they're doing. So, I mean, pro bono work is something some people do to fulfill their 20 hours of, or 50 hours, whatever it is the firm requires. Others do it, 200-300 hours because it's just something that they enjoy doing. And probably I'd say one of the most impactful pro bono cases I've worked on. Well, I mean, there's one I'm working on right now, in which I've filed an amicus brief on behalf of Black Lives Matter against Donald Trump, associated with the Lafayette Square events. And this is really trying to bring international standards to the attention of the US courts in terms of how those should be used. We tend over here in the US to always sort of preach and proselytize human rights to other countries, but then when it turns out that human rights are being violated here, we don't respect the same legal standards. But aside from that case, I was the lead lawyer for I would say the largest alliance of LGBTQ, the LGBTQI community globally, in representing them over a dispute relating to .gay. The idea being that there should be a purple space for those who want to be able to express their own sexuality or identity without fear of persecution. And this was a long-standing arbitration against the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. And the ultimate disposition of this, inshallah, will be that there will be a, as you have a .com, .net, .org, that there will be a .gay. As the shootings down in Florida. And it I think in some respects gave me great pride to be able to say that, we don't vilify Muslims because of what happened in Florida, and don't vilify us because we have a range of views that run the spectrum of our faith with respect to the LGBTQ community. And so it was very fulfilling to be able to do that.
Thank you, Ara. Fatima?
Sure. So I think, so to be clear, you don't come to Big Law to do pro bono. So it is a part of your practice, and so you should be strategic about what pro bono matters you're taking and how much time you're spending on it. And should never take the place of your client bobo work. But I'll just give a couple of items that I'm proud of and I really enjoyed. The firm did an amicus brief in the Muslim ban. We partnered with Karama, Muslim Women Lawyers Organization, Human Rights Organization. And I'll be honest, like that was something that I cared about. I wanted the firm to do. But if you are at a firm that might not be totally ahead, like the first one in these issues, you should be prepared to think about it strategically and make sure that you're presenting the project as an opportunity for the firm, good press for the firm. How is it going to benefit the firm? How is it going to benefit your firm's attorneys? And we were lucky we were able to present that case in a way that made it compelling for the firm to agree. And I know a lot of you are probably at firms who are cutting edge, like totally interested in taking controversial issues, any Muslim rights, civil rights issues, but not all of you might be at firms like that. And currently, so there's two partners at our firm that were appointed the monitors for the New Orleans Police Department. This was in 2013. And so they've been working on that monitorship for several years. And after the murder of George Floyd, really wanted to roll out this police reform project nationally. And so the firm is partnered with Georgetown Law School on a project called ABLE. It's about active bystandership for law enforcement. It's really an initiative to transform police culture. And what's been great about being involved in that is obviously it's something that you care about, you want to see happen. Police reform is something you can feel how you want about it. I understand there's mixed emotions and feelings about it, but something that civil rights communities want to get behind and police officers want to get behind. And the great thing about that is, like, we partnered with our corporate clients on it because a lot of them have taken stances about racial justice and about police reform. And so not to say, obviously, pursue the opportunities that you are passionate about and you care about, but also see them as opportunities to partner with your clients and could be your friend, right? That's your level at in-house. That you can present these opportunities to develop the relationship more and give them an opportunity to shine at their organization, right? It will give you an opportunity to shine as a leader in your firm, but also give your in-house friends an opportunity to shine within their organization.
Absolutely. And I would also note, for like younger attorneys, pro bono cases give you the opportunity to build skills that you wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to do as if you're a second or third year associate. You could be taking a deposition of the lead defendant. When I was litigating a 1983 case, I took the deposition of a lieutenant police officer in New Jersey who was the defendant. And so to me, that was a great opportunity to, one, gain some skills and prove to the partners involved with the case that I can do this, trust me to do it for your paying clients as well. Okay, so one last question on associate advancement before we turn to questions from our audience. Hussein, Arif, and Farha, so as a practical matter, what do you think are the most important things mid-level and senior associates should be focusing on to set themselves up for partnership? Is it business development, engaging in firm committees? Hussein, why don't you kick it off?
Sure. I mean, beyond just doing the work and continuing to become an expert, I think one of the things that's undervalued for mid-level associates is doing some of the other stuff, right? So whether it's helping out on a pitch, that always gave me a lot of opportunities to learn and make non-billable connections with some of the more senior partners in the firm. Whether it's attending events for summer associates, I do a lot of the summer associate interviewing in the DC office, partly because I was enthusiastic about it and like to do it. So don't just look at the billable hour. I know it's already a lot, but if you can start looking at things that interest you beyond the work in the firm and try to get involved there.
Thank you, Hussein. Farha?
I would say, it's never too early to build your network and to work on building your network. Like Hussein said, you have to, be an expert. You have to be the best. You have to be a good firm citizen, which is what, he alluded to by saying, participate, raise your hand for projects. But, you at the end of the day, you need to be able to make a business case for yourself. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you have been working strategically to build your network. And again, Hussein said this, it's fun, right? Like, you go out to lunch with people that you like, go out to lunch with, your colleagues or the junior people on the in-house team that you're working with, or, and that's how you build your network. And those are the people who are going to be in positions to make decisions later on. And that's the way that you're going to position yourself to make the best business case for yourself. Don't wait to do that. I think that's a big mistake.
Thank you, Farha. And lastly, Arif.
Well, I mean, this is a talk that I give to all associates frequently. I mean, whether it's within open forum at the firm or in mentoring talks when people call me and I speak to them. And so I'd say that as you, Mohammed, started to list out various things, the answer is usually all of the above. I mean, that's it is trying to do as much as you can of all of the things that the firm expects. I do think, to Farah's point, building a network internally and externally. That's an external network that could be that may yield business opportunities, an internal network that may yield business opportunities. But more importantly, from the internal network, people have to like you. They have to respect you, they have to like you, and they have to take a vested interest in you, whether it's a sponsor or it's a mentor, but also more broadly, you have to have a reputation that this is just a person that we like to be around and we like to have as part of our community. So, there is a very important element of, I say, the likability factor. The hours have to be met, but not because of simply the economic imperative, but the hours evaluation is a proxy for how good you are, right? And so if your hours aren't hitting target or exceeding target, it means that you're not in demand. And there must be a reason for that. There isn't an ethos here in most big law of how am I going to make you a partner, but rather what is it that I can, what are the factors that can exclude you from partnership, right? And so it's not, I mean, it's difficult to calibrate that, but you have to give the policy committees or the partnership election committees no excuse to exclude you. And you have to give those who are part of the overall politicking of partnership every quiver in the arrow to be able to hit the bullseye on your behalf. So, keep in mind that you could be absolutely perfect. You could have done all, met your pro bono requirements. You could be really well liked. You could have met your hours. You could be a star associate. But if the politics don't align amongst the behemoths who are going to be arguing within that policy committee for their people, it may not happen for no reason other than, compromise within the political dynamics. So in order to mitigate against that risk, you've got to do all the things that we've all just been saying. But I'd say one other thing, which is recognize who your client is, right? Your client isn't always just the person that you're serving or the entity you're serving outside of the firm. The client is the partner or the senior associate. That they are your number one priority. Anticipate, make them look good, right? There is always this desire to make yourself look good because we're in a culture of self-promotion. But if you have other people who are extolling your virtues, it's sort of double the effect. So work hard on making the people that you're working for look really good. And another way to do that, in addition to doing great work and anticipating and learning everything you can to make their lives easier, is mentor. Because the more you mentor, and the more you guide, and the more you advise those that you're supervising, they're going to make you look good. Because they too will speak about you in laudatory terms. And that goes up and down from the most senior person you work with to the person who is the most vulnerable within the institution. So never underestimate the impact of a person, let's say in the mailroom or the security guard, whomever it might be, saying to the chairman of the firm, that Mohammad Pathan, that Farhad Chaudhry, they're really fabulous people. They were so kind. They did this, they did that. People will remember that. And you do it not because not for that reason, you do it because you're good people. But at the end, it is important. So, those are a few of my words of wisdom on the whole partnership thing. It's tough, but you just have to kind of keep at it until you realize that as we're coming full circle, that there's keep your options open.
Thank you, Arif. You actually raised a very good point that, at least in my head, the number one compliment I can get from a partner or even a client is they trust me. That's kind of like an understated compliment where if you tell them something, you give them some analysis of the facts or analysis of the law, and they take it for what it is, that's a compliment that as an associate you are trusted, whether it be a smaller matter or a larger matter. So let's turn to some of the questions. I know we're running short of time, so we may only be able to get through one or two of these. So one of the members of the audience asked, to our women attorneys, how have you navigated the challenge of bringing in the money and clients when it's often a matter of breaking into the boys' club? Fatima or Farhad?
I'll just say it's not what I've experienced is in-house colleagues that are at my level are often women, right? And they're often moms or, people that I connect with really well. And the important thing is at my stage, obviously I want to build a relationship with the GC, but building a relationship with people at my level, because we're going to grow up together, right? And so it's a long game, and it's about building the network, like Farah said, building your relationships, just genuine friendships. And my best clients are women and moms like me, frankly.
I mean, I would just say, like, being a corporate lawyer, like the people that I typically do interact with are men. I mean, that's just a fact in corporate law, unfortunately, and we're hoping to change that. I mean, I think, you know, just be yourself. I mean, I just feel like I've been so fortunate. You know, I understand that I work in Silicon Valley, one of the most liberal places in the United States. It just, to be honest, it hasn't been an issue for me. I've just always had really great mentors, really great allies that were men who were just strong supporters. And yeah, so I've just been lucky.
Thank you, Farah. I think we'll touch on one last question. So, how have you all managed to balance work and family priorities as a corporate or big law attorney? Anyone can volunteer.
I guess I'll just say really quickly, and I'll let other people talk, but that there's different paths, right? And so I was part-time for a really long time. I took a special counsel title. I went part-time. I focused on, you know, my family. I did it at a point where I was senior enough, where I was running deals and acting as a partner, but without all the pressure of business development. And then, you know, to Arif's point, when my kids were older, but then also when the politics were aligning for me, I made the push to transition. And I think, you know, looking back at that was the best thing I could have done for my family.
Thank you, Farah. Hussein, Fatima, Arif, any takers?
I mean, Sunday
Balance
night
is very difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's a constant struggle. I mean, it really is, and it doesn't stop. I think it leads to a constant looking inwards and a lot of existentialism all the time, because you know, we sell time, and notwithstanding all the, you know, and in some respects it's the dumbest model ever, because there are only 24 hours in a day, and so it's all leveraged, and you don't go to an apple seller and say, well, you know, you have 24 apples, sell those apples every day. You're trying to sell as many apples as you can, and you're competing against other apple sellers. So it is very difficult, I think, to maintain the balance. I think that law firms have gotten a lot better at understanding that people with healthy minds and healthy bodies and happier mindsets are going to be better in the workplace. But it is not the same type of ethos here in the US as it is, let's say, in Europe and other parts of the world, which is not to say that all around the world lawyers don't work incredibly hard. I think that there's a lot more work that has to be done. And I do think that it's a great start that there are these alternative tracks to partnership. I do think that people, both men and women, should consider those tracks. I don't think that these alternative tracks exist just for women who have given, because of childbirth or whatever else, but there are, men have an equal role to play in the raising of the families. We have parenting, responsibilities to our parents, as well as to our children. I'm at a stage in life where my balance is no longer with my children, but in looking after my parents. So, have the courage to be able to say that I will be successful within my institution, and I shouldn't be ashamed, embarrassed, or have any trepidation about availing of those opportunities to go to reduced FTE, which is full-time equivalent. Go 60%, go 50%, go 70%. Take special counsel status, even if you're a partner, in order to be able to manage your other obligations as best as you can, and then come back to it. Because when you've been a partner, 15 years, whether you became a partner in year 8 or 10 or 12, it really isn't going to matter, right? But if you've screwed up your relationship with your children, or you haven't, you regret not having looked after yourself, or you regret not having been able to spend time with your aging parents, that'll never come back again. So I really, just urge you, irrespective of where you are on the faith spectrum or the cultural spectrum, to think about, in that balance of work versus life, always vote in favor of life. because that's going to just, hold you in better stead over the longer run.
Thank you, Arif. Hussein, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, one of the things I've been able to do is sort of supplement the week time with some weekend time, right? So if Sunday nights, for example, Saturday nights, obviously those are not nights that anyone wants to work, but if you can get 3-4 hours here, 3-4 hours there, sometimes when I have a young child, when he takes an afternoon nap, I will immediately run into the home office, and finish something for 2 or 3 hours, and then I have the whole afternoon to spend with him. And so it's not ideal, right? But obviously, the law firm makes up for it in different ways. But yeah, I mean, you can get creative on timing as well.
Perfect. Well, it looks like people are jumping off as they have different 4:30 obligations, but I quickly wanted to thank first our audience for joining today. Without the audience, this event would not be as successful as it is, and I appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join it. Inshallah, we will have many more events going on in the future, and our audience will increase and increase, where Amba is known throughout the United States. That's definitely one of my goals. But I also want to thank our panelists. I know many of them have left at this point, but without you, this event would not have been successful. We don't know each other, we haven't met each other, but through these events now, we're slowly getting to know each other. And I hope that we can continue to build on these relationships. From Salma and I, we really appreciate you supporting Amba. It means a ton to us. And please always reach out if there's anything we can do for you.
And thank you, Mohammad, too, for putting this together and all the thoughtful questions. And I think, I hope that everyone enjoyed themselves, and I really enjoyed meeting you all.
Thank you, Farah.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.